Welcome into episode 20 of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. In today's episode, I'll be joined by Sylvia Duckworth to talk about sketchnoting, why students should sketchnote or doodle, some of Sylvia's favorite sketchnoting apps for iPads and Chromebooks, and some strategies for how to start sketchnoting in your class.
I'm Tanya Everett.
And I'm Holly Clark, host of the Infuse Classroom Podcast, a proud member of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to right now.
The opinions expressed are those of each individual host. Be sure to check out all of our other great podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com and get ready because the learning begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast with Jake Miller.
Welcome in duct tapers. Greetings to any new friends out there. My name is Jake, and I am here to talk to you about duct tape and educational technology and how I see this weird metaphor as an EdTech decision-making protocol the teachers can put to work in their classrooms today. I cannot believe we're already on episode 20. On one hand, I can totally believe it because it's been a lot of work. But on the other hand, it feels like it was just yesterday that I was just creating the logo and planning out the intro episode. For those of you who are new to the show, each episode follows a pretty similar format. After a brief intro, I'll share a SoapBox Moment, which is like a little mini speech or a keynote from me. Then I'll welcome in the episode's guest. We'll have a chit chat, then play a little game to have some fun, and then dig into 2 educational questions and how we could use educational technology, or educational duct tape as I call it, to answer, solve, or address those questions. And then at the end of the show, I share stuff from our wonderful community of listeners, which I lovingly refer to as duct tapers, and they, for some reason, accept that moniker. And you newbies, I hope you'll stick around as duct tapers too. There are links in the show notes and information about how you could do each of those things, so your stuff, your voice, your words can be featured in the end of the show portion. So please head over to the show notes and check that out. I am very excited to have Sylvia Duckworth joining me in this episode. I have followed her on Twitter for years, and I am a huge fan of her work relating to sketchnoting. I'm so excited for you to hear my chat with her today. I have to say I was definitely drinking the sketchnote Kool-Aid by the end of it. A few more things before I bring Sylvia in, though. First up, GIF a Day. The first ever iteration of GIF a Day, a new kind of tech PD, started a few weeks ago. 145 people have joined in to receive one GIF about Google Sheets in their inbox on 28 straight weekdays. We are nearing the halfway point, and I am so pumped about how engaged and excited the participants are. They're actively sharing thoughts and questions and reflections on the Padlet associated with the experience, and they've given me lots of feedback that I've already put in motion to improve the experience. I've heard from a bunch of people who wish they would have joined in, so I'm starting to get plans together for offering a second run of this same Google Sheets learning opportunity. You could join the GIF a Day email list at jakemiller.net/GIF-A-Day. That's GIFADAY. To make sure that you get notified when registration opens up for it. And at some point in the future, I'll probably move on to a topic other than Google Sheets. There's also going to be a second level of the Google Sheets version. I don't have dates yet for when that's going to happen at this point, but if you do sign up for that mailing list, you'll know about them when they happen. Where in the world is JakeMillerTech? All right, gumshoes. Educational duct tape presenter Jake Miller is on the loose, and we need your help to track him down. It's so funny to me to think back to our 5th grade class when our teacher would let us come up to the one computer in her room to answer a question. We'd come up one at a time. We'd have to yell out the question to the rest of the class, and as a class, we'd try to figure out the answer. It was such an honor when you got your turn to be that student up at the computer. It was so cool. Memories. Anyhow, if the chief has put you in charge of tracking down the elusive Carmen Sandy Miller, that's me, I'll be at the Keep Academy in Streetsboro, Ohio on June 10th, at the LEAD Conference in Strongsville, Ohio on June 18th, and for my first time at ISTE presenting on June 22nd and 24th. I'll also be at Springfield Township Schools in New Jersey on July 25th. And I'll be virtually presenting at the KY Go Digital Central event on July 30th. I don't think I'm going to be a Star Wars style hologram, but I'm still excited to be part of the event. I'll be at the Quincy Conference in Illinois on October 11th and the TCCA Conference in Texas on October 26th. I'll be presenting to Twinsburg City Schools in Ohio in October. I'll be doing a mini-keynote at the Ideastream Technology and Learning Conference in Cleveland, Ohio in November. Links to information for all of those is in the show notes. You can also hear me talk educational duct tape in the online Teach with Tech conference on July 23rd and the Homeschooling Teens Global Summit this June. I'm hoping to add some more locations to that list, so visit jakemiller.net/speaking if you'd like to help me out with that. I also have a few that are tentative that I hope to share soon, so hopefully next week I'll have a few more events to share with you there too. Out there on the webosphere, you can hear me on the Educational Podcasting Today podcast with Jeff Bradbury of TeacherCast. That was a good time. We talked about podcasting, GIFs, newsletters, and of course, how to pronounce GIF. And Jeff renamed me Gake and himself Geff so that we can have the hard G sound in our names there too. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let me just grab my soapbox from over here. Yeah. There we go. That's perfect. Climb up on there. If you really want to do something, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. During the course of the 5.5 months that this podcast has existed, I've heard from a number of educators who have used things that they learned from this show. Allison McCutcheon just sent me a video of the book that her students made using Boom Writer after she heard about it from Angela Wotecki. They also tried out Peer Grade after she heard about it from Sarah Rivera. Marie Cara Bautista Osorio sent in pictures and videos of a Skype session with a marine conservation biologist that she connected with through Skype a Scientist after hearing me mention it. Debbie Tannenbaum used Scratch and resources from csinsf.org with her students after hearing Carly Mora share about it. Ann Cannon's class did a mystery Skype with a class from Ann Radefeld's school after hearing Ann share about it. Dan Stitzel and Molly Clodor started a podcast for their school district after hearing Angela Wotecki share about her district's podcast. And there are at least a dozen instances that I left out, and hopefully many more that I don't even know about. But what they all have in common is this. The educators heard about it, they wanted to do it, and they found a way. Angela, Sarah, Carly, Ann, and I didn't show up at their schools and train them on how to do it. The educators figured it out themselves. Because educators are awesome. Because if we want something bad enough for our students, we will find a way. But then there are times when we don't want it bad enough. And we say we're too busy. Or we're not good with technology. Or it won't work with my kids. Or it doesn't fit with what we teach. And while some of those things might be true, they are all excuses. Jim Rohn, that's Jim Rohn, R-O-H-N, said, if you really want to do something, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. The bad thing about the excuse isn't the fact that you're not doing the thing. It's that they're lying. They're lying because they don't really want to do that thing. If you haven't used, Scratch in your class yet, don't say it's because of lack of tech skills or lack of time or lack of support or lack of highly motivated students. Be honest. You don't want to use it badly enough to do it right now. It might seem like a daunting task to learn how to use it, but you could overcome that daunting hurdle if you wanted to badly enough. So don't lie. You just don't want to badly enough right now. That's okay. That's fine. You cannot do all of the things. You cannot use all of the tech. You would be overwhelmed, your students would be overwhelmed, and your returns would diminish because you'd be spreading yourself too thin. Be honest with yourself. Pick the things that you really want to do. Really want to do. And find a way. Because you are a teacher. You could hide your repulsion when a kid picks their nose and eats it. You could hold it in when you have to wait an hour longer than humanly possible to get a pee break. You can make learning even the most mundane topics seem important to children. You can act interested when a kid tells you about a video game they played or a family event from over the weekend. You can make sad kiddos feel like they're on top of the world when they're in your class. So you sure as heck can figure out Scratch or Flipgrid or Flippity.net or quizzes or whatever tool you want. So pick your new tool or two or even three and make it happen. And when another tool comes along, you can say, I don't want to integrate that one at this point. It is okay. Don't lie. Be honest. I don't want to at this point. Maybe later. Maybe I'll get to that one later. But I don't want it badly enough right now. You know what? I have to be honest. I've been following Sylvia Duckworth on Twitter for 4 or 5 years. I believe that sketchnoting could be good for me and could be good for students, but I have never once tried it. And I have never once had students try it. Not because I didn't have time, because I didn't want to badly enough. And I have to be honest, after the interview that I'm about to share with you, I think I want to now. I think I'm going to find a way. And that's what it's all about. Look at the tools, the opportunities, the activities, the experiences that you could bring into your classroom and decide, do I want to? Is it the right tech? Is it what's best for my students? Is it the right thing for me to focus on integrating? Because you can't focus on all of the things. So is this the right one? And if it is, and if you want it, find a way. Attend a workshop, watch a video on YouTube, read a blog post about it, ask someone about it on Twitter, or just get in there and, as Eric Kurtz says, poke a stick at it. Find a way. Just do it.
Today's guest.
Today's guest is Sylvia Duckworth. Sylvia is an award-winning teacher from Toronto, Canada, with more than 30 years experience in the classroom. She is a Google certified innovator and trainer, an Apple distinguished educator, and author of the books Sketchnotes for Educators and the new How to Sketchnote, a step-by-step manual for teachers and students. You can follow her on Twitter at Sylvia Duckworth and on Instagram also at Sylvia Duckworth. See her work at sylviaduckworth.com and reach out to her if you need to at sduckworth100@gmail.com. As always, all of that information will be in the show notes. Sylvia, welcome in. It's so great to have you here today.
Oh, it's wonderful to be a guest on your show, Jake. I've admired your show for a while, so thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. So for listeners that aren't familiar with Sylvia, I'm not sure if that's a possibility that any listeners aren't familiar with your work, Sylvia, but I have been seeing your sketch notes on Twitter for what seems like 3 or 4 years. How long has it been since you started putting them out there?
Yeah, I'd say about 4 years is about right. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the I can really remember some of the early ones with the students. And I remember an inquiry-based mindset one. I think I remember one based on the Rita Pearson talk, I think. And there were some early ones that I just really loved. And so I've been following your work since then. So it's really, really great to have you on the chat.
Thanks for having me.
So I was looking on your site as I was preparing for tonight, and I noticed something, and your site is sylviaduckworth.com. I noticed mentioning of the sketchnoting world tour. Can you tell us about that?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's been a really busy year. So let me just say, first of all, I'm retired, which is why I've been able to do this tour. This is my second year of retirement. I was teaching core French. In Canada, we have 2 official languages, and one is English and one is French. And so I was teaching core French for more than 30 years, and my magic number came up, the 85 factor here in Ontario, which means you can retire on full benefits. So I decided to go for it.
Congratulations.
And the timing was perfect thank you, because I was working on my second book, and I know I'd be busy with the book and tours and stuff. So that's why I've been able to do a world tour. I did a all cross Canada tour last year in 2018, and now I'm doing a world tour. So I've been to some amazing places. I was in China recently with Sandra Chow. Do you know Sandra, Jake?
I know the name Sandra Chow. I've connected with her on Twitter. She does great work as well.
Yeah, no, she invited me because she teaches in Beijing in a wonderful independent school, and she invited me. So I was there. I was in Atlanta in January. Oh, I did get to visit the Ron Clark Academy too, which was amazing. If any of you listeners out there ever get a chance to do that, it's life-changing. And then I just got back from New Zealand, where my daughter teaches, and I did a few workshops there. I'm on my way to Oregon and North Carolina. I'm going to South Africa and Costa Rica and Vietnam, and so it's been really busy. It's been really exciting to be able to share my love of sketchnoting with teachers all around the world.
Yeah, how cool. So a lot of people, when they get to retirement age and people say, what are you going to do when you retire? They might say either travel the world or work on my art or write a book. Yeah. But here you are kind of combining all of the 3 of them along with your passions for education.
It's so true. I just pinch myself sometimes thinking, wow, this is really, it all came together at a perfect time.
Yeah, well, it's not luck. It's hard work, and it's good talent. I know you've really earned it. So congratulations on that.
Jake.
Yeah. So tell us about the new book, the How to Sketchnote book. So I've seen your original one, Sketchnotes for Educators, which is it safe to say is a collection of all of your best and earliest sketchnotes?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it.
So then how does the new one differ from that then?
Okay, it's hugely different. So the first one is exactly that, a collection of 100 of my most popular sketchnotes. And the current one is How to Sketchnote. It's actually, the subtitle is a step-by-step manual for teachers and students. So if you're interested in finding out how you can get started yourself or how to get started with your students, this is the book that you need to buy. And it's available on Amazon.
I think I need that one.
Yeah. Now, just a word of warning for the listeners out there. I did switch publishers recently. So if you look for the book on Amazon and it's something like, $60, that's not the price. So what you want to do is you want to look for the price that's under $20, and that would be my current publisher.
Oh, good to know. Good tip there. They're trying to sell those old ones off there. It's not 60 loonies, is it? That's 60 American dollars we're referring to there?
No, and it's not the previous publisher's fault. It's Amazon. That's as supplies run low on a certain product, then the price goes high.
Even though it's a duplication of something that's available elsewhere, there's still it's technically a limited version.
Actually, someone just needs to go to my website, sylviaduckworth.com, and there's the link to the proper Amazon version is on my website.
Perfect. I'll put in the show notes and hopefully everybody will check it out because I know when I talk to people a lot and they are interested in sketchnoting and say they wish they knew how to do that and they don't even know where to start. It's probably a wonderful resource for that.
Oh yeah, there's lots of books out there, but I did some research. I bought all the books for sketchnotes and education, and a lot of them were very theory based, like this is the theory behind sketchnotes and whatnot. And I thought, I remember what it was like when I was trying to learn how to sketchnote, and all I wanted to do was learn how to draw the icons and the banners and the things that you need to put into a sketchnote. I didn't care about, is this relevant for my students? Because I knew that I wanted to learn how to do it, and I knew instinctively it was good for my students. So I just wanted to give me the tools to do it. And so that's why I came up with my book, because it's filled with there's about 250 different icons and then lessons on how you can get started with your students, step-by-step lessons. It's very scaffolded, easy to follow.
Yeah, I love that. That sounds awesome. So speaking of scaffolded, let's scaffold ourselves from the intro portion. Before we scaffold all the way into educational duct tape, let's go into some slightly silly stuff now, okay?
Okay.
So we're going to start off with a game of 2 truths and 1 lie. So you've got 3 statements for me. One of them's a lie, 2 of them are true, and I am going to do a horrible job of guessing which one's a lie because I almost always get this wrong. So let's see how I do.
2 truths and 1 lie.
Okay, Jake. All right. So my first fact is that my great-grandmother is an identical twin.
Okay.
And my second one is that I have identical twins.
Okay.
And my third one is that I am an identical twin.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so that's a lot of identical twinning in your family there, and we know that 2 of them are true. So the first one, did you say grandmother or great-grandmother?
Great-grandmother.
Great-grandmother was an identical twin, or you are an identical twin, or you have identical twins. I'm going to guess that your great-grandmother is an identical twin and you have identical twins, but you're not an identical twin. That's my guess.
Oh, well, you're 1 out of 2.
1 out of 2. Okay, so which one's the lie in there?
So the lie is that I have identical twins. I am an identical twin.
You are an identical twin, and is your sister or brother? Okay, Jake?
Just check. You really want me to answer that?
Sure.
Jake, do you know what an identical twin is?
No, does an identical twin have to be same sex?
Yeah, we have the same genes.
Same genes. Well, so what's the difference?
You should know that.
I don't know that.
What do you teach?
I don't. Gosh, I'm licensed to teach science, Sylvia.
Oh, you're so funny. That's hilarious.
So what is it if it's a boy and a girl who are twins? What is that called?
That's fraternal.
I had no idea.
So I bring this up actually a lot I do a keynote called The Talent Myth. And I bring this fact up a lot because I stopped drawing when I was about 10 years old. I decided I wasn't very good at it because I was comparing myself to my sister, my identical twin, who was a great artist. And I just went, I can't even compare to her. I'm going to stop drawing.
Oh my
so
goodness.
I didn't take up drawing till about 4 years ago when I started to notice all these beautiful drawings on social media related to education. So I decided to give it a try. And at the same time, like maybe about a year later, I read this book by Matthew Syed called Bounce, The Science of Success. And he states that there's no such thing as natural talent and that talent is acquired through many different ways, but not naturally. And he says that deliberate practice is a factor and desire. So motivation is another factor and something else which he calls external circumstances. But after I read the book, I went, okay, well, my sister was a much better artist than I was, but she loved to draw and she drew all the time.
Right. She was working hard at
it. All she did was draw. And that's why she was a better artist than I was. And it wasn't because she had any natural gifts, because we are identical twins. We have the identical same genes. So I'd like to bring this up during my workshop, saying like, there's no such thing as natural talent. If you find something that you decide you want to be good at, you just need to put the time into getting good at it, and you're going to get good at it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
that's so great. Like that's how I could work really hard at knowing the difference between fraternal and identical twins, right? Wow. So that was going to be my next question. Once I determined if it was a brother or a sister, oh my gosh. Once I determined that, I was going to say, is your sister, first of all, an educator, and second of all, an artist or good with art or naturally artistically motivated? But that's fascinating that so her apparent skill at art, actually, well, it was skill at art, but it wasn't a natural talent. It was from all of that work. It was just a passion for it. And she spent a lot of time on it. And so then once you did the same, you discovered a similar ability for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. How cool. What a cool story. All right. So now let's jump directly into the educational duct tape. So for any newbies that are listening, I'm going to give them a background on what educational duct tape is. So educational duct tape is my silly metaphor that educational technology is at its most useful when it is a tool being used to solve a problem, address a learning standard, or meet a learning need in the classroom, not when it's the actual focus of the lesson or the activity or the unit, but when it is a tool helping teachers do what they need to do to benefit students. Much like duct tape is a great tool, but you never go about trying intentionally just to use duct tape. You're trying to solve some kind of problem or meet some goals. So educational duct tape.
Cool.
So let's patch some questions with some duct tape. Are you ready?
Of course.
Okay, so I'm going to ask one first. How can a teacher keep students on task during direct instruction?
Okay, so the answer is sketchnoting. So let me just ask you something, Jake. How often have you been in an audience and there's a speaker and you're bored and your mind starts to drift and then you realize you didn't hear a word the speaker said in the last 10 minutes?
It happened to me this evening. I was actually at a meeting tonight and it happened. And I went for Twitter, but that was not the most productive thing to do. I probably should have done something that kept me mind on, right?
Right. So had you been sketchnoting or even just doodling during his presentation, that would have kept your mind a lot more active into what was being said. And there's actually tons of research that I've done for my book. I have a whole page of resources, and there's a link to it in my book, on studies that support the use of doodling and sketchnoting in class. But one of the studies that really comes to mind is this one study where they took two groups of adults. Both groups of adults had to listen to a really boring, tedious phone conversation. It was the same pre-recorded phone conversation. One group was allowed to doodle during the phone conversation. The other group was not allowed to doodle during the phone conversation. And then they tested the adults later to see how much information they recalled from the conversation. And the group that doodled was able to recall 29% more information than the non-doodling group. And the doodles didn't necessarily have anything to do with the conversation, just the act itself of doodling kept the brain more engaged and more conscious of what was going on, of the conversation. And so there's studies like that really support doodling and sketchnoting in the classroom. So the answer to your question, how can a teacher keep students on task during direct instruction, is to introduce sketchnoting and to get them to sketchnote during a lesson. And it's also a great way for teachers to assess how much did the student understand from the lesson, and maybe as a teacher, what do I need to review because my students did not understand this part of the lesson. But there's all kinds of reasons for sketchnoting besides that. So sketchnoting, again, there's lots of research that supports the use of it, but sketchnoting helps students retain information and increase their focus and engagement in class. It helps them develop their creative thinking skills. It's a calming activity. It's multisensory, because if you're sketchnoting, you're using your visual and your auditory and your kinesthetic, your drawing. It helps students see the bigger picture in the lesson. It helps them make connections in their learning, and it's a great way for them to display their learning as well. So lots of reasons to use sketchnoting in class.
Yeah, and what stands out the most to me is that you're saying not only is it pulling in all those different parts of their brain and their thinking, but it's all, for the most part, still directed towards that direct instruction that they're experiencing. I think about my schooling, and I was a very good student, and I did doodle a lot, but I was never doodling on, quote unquote, on task. I wasn't like doodling about what I was learning, but it was off in the margins, and it was just sketching little symbols and weird stuff like that. And it was very, I don't want to say mindless, but it wasn't like I was really focused on what I was making. So my mind was staying focused on the content while I was just kind of, my subconscious was doing these little doodles.
But that's what the research supports, the doodling. Yeah. So people ask me, like, so what's the difference between doodling and sketchnoting? And the difference is that doodling is just doodling. Well, sketchnotes is doodles plus text. So that when you go back and you look at your notes, you've got your text, but you've also got your doodles to help you remember better what was being said. So, but sketchnotes can be used in a lot of different ways as well. Like, you don't need to necessarily sketchnote a live lesson. You can sketchnote an idea. You can sketchnote mind mapping. You can sketchnote an outline for a story. Like, there's all kinds of ways that you can use sketchnoting, not necessarily just in the classroom while the teacher's talking.
Right. Yeah, I love that. That's such a great reason for students to be able to do it. And I know I watched one of your talks once where you said, I think you started off with a question of how many of you have said, put down your pencils and look up from your papers and pay attention to me. And that was me in my early years as a teacher, because that's what we thought we were supposed to do. But it's fascinating that there actually is science and studies out there that say, no, it's better to embrace this.
And in your teacher training, I mean, I remember I got this from veteran teachers all the time. Like, don't teach until all your students are looking at you, and stop and wait until everyone's looking at you, and then teach. And so this throws all that out the door. Like, now, the research has proven that students actually benefit from doodling while the teacher's speaking. Yeah. And so it requires a whole mindset change on the part of the teacher, because a lot of teachers really, I mean, it's natural to think that a student has to be looking at you to absorb the information, whereas research has proven that students are more actively engaged if they're allowed to doodle while you're teaching, which is very counterintuitive as a teacher.
Right. Well, because, I think once you hear it, or at least once I hear it, it seems kind of obvious, because I know that if I'm trying to act as if I'm paying close attention, then my mind is going to wander while my eyes don't. But if I'm allowed to focus on a parallel activity like doodling or sketchnoting, then I'm not as much allowing my mind to wander. I'm staying with the content. Yeah.
Yeah. And then once you learn the techniques of sketchnoting and you learn about the different aspects of sketchnoting, then you can do more than doodling. You can actually sketchnote and absorb even more information than you would with just doodling.
Right. So cool. So what are some favorite apps of yours to use with sketchnoting?
Okay. Well, I have a couple of apps that I like to use on the iPad, and then I have a couple that I like to use on the touchscreen Chromebook.
Oh, okay,
so on the
great.
iPad, my number one app that I like to use on the iPad is the ProCreate app.
Mm-hmm.
It does cost money, but it's got some really, really great features.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second one would probably be the Tayasui Sketches, which is free. So there's Tayasui Sketches School, which is a really basic version for young students. And then there's the Tayasui Sketches Pro, which is good for older students. And those are free.
Okay, and I'm going to put both of them in the show notes, but could you spell Tayasui for those people that want to jot it down really quickly right now?
Tayasui.
Tayasui, and it's Tayasui Sketches and Tayasui Sketches School.
Sorry, the Pro is not free. The school is free. And then there is a free version of the Tayasui Sketches, but there's also a Pro version.
Oh, I see.
So there's actually three versions. There's three versions of Tayasui Sketches. So Tayasui Sketches School is free, Tayasui Sketches is free, and then Tayasui Sketches Pro costs money.
Okay. And so why would you use one versus the other?
Tayasui Sketches School is the most basic. It's better for your younger learners. It has less features. The Tayasui Sketches is probably for your older students. And then the Pro is just if you really want to get into sketchnoting. And there's some elements that are only available in the Pro version.
Okay. And what about ProCreate compared to the two of those?
ProCreate has a feature that I absolutely love. You can record your voice while you're screencasting. Tayasui Sketches, you can record your screen, but you cannot record your voice. So that's one reason why I like ProCreate app.
Yeah, that is a neat feature there. So they could that would be a very cool formative assessment, is the students actually being able to record what they're doing on screen with voice and explain to the teacher their understanding of something.
But now with the newest iOS software, you can actually, if you have an updated iPad, you can use the screen record function on any app.
Built-in one, yeah.
The built-in one. So you can even use Tayasui Sketches for that as well.
Yeah, so then what about on the Chromebooks?
So on a Chromebook, the basic one, the one for early learners would be JamBoard. Have you had a chance to play with that yet?
Yeah, JamBoard has kind of become a darling of the show too. We've talked about it a couple times, and it is such an easy to use drawing tool. It's so just so natural,
and it's collaborative too, which is the coolest thing of all.
Yeah. So now, where that one's kind of lacking, right, is that you don't have diverse like pen tools, right?
Right, and it's limited colors. There's only 6 colors. Yeah. So the one I like for older students for a touchscreen Chromebook is called Autodesk Sketchbook.
Okay. Now, is Autodesk Sketchbook, that's an Android one, right? So it's only going to work on a touchscreen Chromebook if they have the Android apps enabled. Do you know?
Right. You need to get it from the Google Play Store. So you need to have access to the Google Play Store.
Right. So that is a limitation that some teachers are dealing with, where their schools maybe have Chromebooks that are Android ready, but they haven't quite flipped the switch yet or figured out how to get that going. So then JamBoard becomes a nice option for that too. Have you used? Well,
I mean, it's worthwhile to contact an administrator if that's the case, and just say like, we need this because it's so good. It's actually. It's like ProCreate app in so many ways. So it's basically ProCreate for the Chromebook, for the touchscreen Chromebook.
Right.
And there's an amazing stylus that I recommend for the touchscreen Chromebook. It's called Stadler. I'll give you the information, Jake, and you can add it in the show notes. But
yeah, that would be wonderful.
This was given to me for free at ISTE last year. I forget where I got it, an Innovator or something or other. And it's fantastic. It's from Germany. And
cool.
It's really, really good for touchscreen Chromebooks. Stadler Norris Digital for Chromebook.
Yeah, we'll definitely put that one in the show notes, because we have at the school I work at, we have some touchscreen Chromebooks, and we were looking for a good stylus, and there are just so many options out there. So it's good to get recommendations. That's great.
It's the best. Yeah.
Have you used Chrome Canvas at all?
Yeah, I've looked at it. It's very limiting so far as sketchnoting goes. I did look at it. I think it's probably good for the basic sketchnoters. The thing that bothered me most about it was that you can't zoom in. And I really like to zoom in when I'm drawing, and I think it's really important to be able to zoom in. The other feature I look for, I actually have a list of what I'm looking for in good apps, and a couple major things is, can you zoom in? Can you zoom out? Can you either import a grid or draw a grid, because it's really important to have a grid that you can, when you zoom in, you want to have some idea of perspective, how much you're zooming in. It's also nice to have a grid to write text on top of. And so you need to be able to import a grid and be able to hide the grid after as well. So those are two features that are really important to me. Also, the ability to have lots of colors and to customize your colors and to be able to match colors is an important feature. So those are the things I look for in a good app.
Yeah, that's. I'm so glad you shared that part, because I would have, if somebody came up to me and said, we have touchscreen Chromebooks and we want to do sketchnoting. We're not ready for Android yet, but that's in our future. But what should we do for now? I would have recommended Chrome Canvas. And I think probably it sounds like it still probably is the best option on a touchscreen Chromebook if you can't do the Google Play Store yet. But that's good to know that is a drawback, the zoom in feature, because when you're trying to add those details, especially on a sketchnote where you're trying to put a lot of information into a small space, you need to be able to zoom in to work with everything in a zoomed in.
And the
format.
other feature that I really look for in an app is the ability to be able to draw something and then to move it later, like, oh, I don't want it here, I actually want it here, or I want it smaller, or I want it bigger. So I'm looking for an app that can do that, where you can, use a lasso type tool where you can actually take the object and move it and put it somewhere else on your canvas. So that's what, and I know that the app you just mentioned, Chrome, what was it?
Canvas.
Chrome Canvas cannot do that. Although I think it's a great app for beginner.
It might be a good way to get kids kind of started on it. And that's when I first watched a video of one of your sketch notes, that's one of the things that stood out the most to me, because I know some people say I like to sketch note on paper, and other people say I like to sketch on screens. And that's one of the first things that jumped out to me, is that the benefit of doing it on screens is that, among many benefits, but the big benefit is that you could draw things wherever you are in your thought process then, and then kind of allocate them as you go. You can move them around, you could resize them appropriately and put them things. That is a super important thing to have.
And it's also neat to be able to export the work as a video, which ProCreate allows you to do. And then you can add music, and then you can do a voiceover. Like, those are all things that I look for in an app as well.
Yeah. Wow, great information. We've never discussed sketchnoting on the show, so it's great to get all the information out there.
Have you tried Keynote as a tool for sketchnoting?
No, I have not.
Yeah, that's really cool too. I've sort of recently discovered that. So you can use the drawing tool in Keynote if you have an updated iOS iPad. Do you have an iPad Pro with an iPad?
We do have an iPad Pro in the school. I should try that out.
Oh yeah, you should try it. So then you use Keynote, you draw with your pencil on a Keynote presentation, then you use the animated feature called Line Draw, and it will play your drawing from beginning to end, and then you can also export it into iMovie and add your voice on top of it as well. Oh,
very cool. And then kind of tap into all those great editing features that Mac and Apple have for videos and things like that. Very cool. Very cool. Such a great thing to expose kids to. So I'm going to answer slightly differently here.
Sure.
So the original question that we've meandered away from, enjoyably meandered away, so I'm not complaining, it was keeping students on task during direct instruction. And I think that your answer is kind of ideal, because it's less. It becomes a strategy that you use where you're no longer even keeping them on task. You're giving them something to do that doesn't make them go off task, if that makes sense. You're almost like intrinsically motivating them to stay on task.
Absolutely.
Once they tap into this ability, they may never get off task again.
True.
Right.
You can't, I just want to forewarn teachers, you can't go out there and say, okay, we're going to sketch note today, go. Like, there's a real scaffolding process. You can look online to get some ideas on how to do that, but save yourself the trouble and buy my book, because it's all explained in my book. You need to develop a doodling culture in your classroom to begin with. You need to let them know it's okay to doodle. And like we talked about that earlier, about how hard it is for some teachers to get into that mindset. Yeah. And you need to allow students to develop their visual vocabulary on a daily basis. So I'll give you an example. Like, you don't really have to know how to draw hundreds and hundreds of icons in sketchnoting, but you do need to know how to draw a core amount of icons. For example, if you knew how to draw a computer, what can a computer represent, Jake? If I were to draw a computer,
Right.
what can you tell me?
So then you could start representing anything digital,
Right.
or you could easily pivot that into an iPad or a tablet or a phone, because you've kind of got this icon that you can start to change as you go. Or you could be talking about something you would do on the
Right.
computer, like maybe you're talking about digitally creating.
Right.
So then you could use a computer to represent that. Yeah.
Totally. What else do you do on a computer?
Yeah, so it could be typing, it could be researching, it could be collaborating, it could be connecting with others. Yeah.
Totally. So you get the idea. So a computer can represent all these different things. So what can a light bulb represent? If you knew how to draw a light bulb, what can you use that to represent?
Right. So a light bulb could be ideas or genius hour or innovation or right.
Yeah. What about a rocket ship?
A rocket ship. That could be launching or trying new things or starting a new adventure or or traveling or a lot. Yeah.
So here I am forcing you to think visually.
Yeah.
And this is what you need to get your students to start thinking visually. And I have a whole bunch of exercises in my book showing icons and having this discussion with your students. What can these icons represent? And then once they start thinking visually, you need to allow your students 5 to 10 minutes a day to build their visual vocabulary, drawing these icons, so that when you do ask them to sketchnote, it's not so much of a chore for them, because they've already have a group of icons that they have in their back pocket that they can pull out because they've used them often enough already. And the other thing I recommend, and this comes from a good friend of mine, her name is Carrie Bauckham, and she's at Heck Awesome on Twitter. She's an amazing sketchnoter educator with a lot of great resources on YouTube. If you Google her YouTube channel, you'll find it. And she recommends getting a board in your classroom and inviting students to contribute to the board. So the board will be for sketchnoting icons. So then you will have Post-it notes available. The students can just draw their icon and put on the board and write a word that this icon can represent. Or maybe you want to brainstorm with your students ahead of a unit. What icons can we use for this unit? And have them figure out the icons you can draw on the board together, the icons that they can use for that unit. So you can't really just go out there and say, okay, let's watch this 5-minute video on sketchnoting. Now let's do it. You really have to work your way towards it.
Right. I mean, that's total fish out of water, right? If you try to jump right into it, and that's a panic moment, that's got to be really overwhelming to a new learner. It would be overwhelming to us as adults if we walked into a meeting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to give, so we have 2 questions here. You've essentially answered our second question, and I'm going to give my answer to it now that kind of combines both of them. So our second question was, and you've done a wonderful job of laying it out there, was how can we encourage doodling and sketchnoting in class? And some of these things you're talking about here, this 10 minutes of drawing a day, this board to share a lot of icons, a lot of these things really encourage it. A couple ideas I had to start to encourage it. One is to use an app like maybe Pear Deck or Nearpod, which also is a feasible answer for our first question about keeping students on task during direct instruction, but to ask kids to submit answers to things with drawings. So to help those kids in an environment where feedback is very easy and natural, answer simple questions with drawings and have some kind of, I don't know what parameters you'd put on it, that they have to use more drawings than words, or as much drawings as words, or some amount of drawings as words, or maybe give them a couple icons to use and ask them to utilize those icons. But that might be a really good way to scaffold them into it.
Yeah, for sure. You don't want to freak out the kids who aren't comfortable drawing, though. I'd be careful about using that as an assessment too early.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Sketchnoting journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, because especially if you're dealing with older students, a lot of them have no confidence in their drawing abilities, and that might really put them. They might feel very uncomfortable with that.
Yeah, isn't that sad that I could walk into the classroom that my 9-year-old is in and ask everybody to draw about a topic, and they would all dive right in and love it.
Totally.
And if I walked into the 14-year-old's classroom that I work with at my school and asked them to do the same, they would all turn their noses up at me. Yeah.
It's so true. Something happens when we're about 10 years old. We lose our love of drawing. And I ask that question in my workshops, Like, why does that happen? And most people say they lose their confidence, or they've been told they're no good at drawing.
Yeah.
Or a school has put pressure on them to drop art and pursue something else.
Yeah, I do think it's a little bit of our education culture has done it, but I also think it is a confidence thing. It's just part of that age where they lose that confidence, and it's a risk. You know, what if I draw this and it doesn't look good, and then they're afraid to take that risk to then draw it. But I think what you're saying is that we can build that culture in safe ways that doesn't overwhelm them, and get them comfortable with taking those risks.
Yeah,
and then maybe they become much better versions of their student selves in their future because of it. You know, we set them on a path where it really kind of changes their whole path that they're going to go on as students and as humans. What do you think of doing things like playing a song and having the students sketch note what they think about the song? Are those good, kind of easy, quick ways?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, that brings to mind Rohn. Do you know Rohn Lee?
No, I don't.
Rohn Lee is a fellow Canadian. And he started a challenge on Twitter last year called a Doodle a Day challenge, hashtag a Doodle a Day. And that was one of his activities, was listen to a song and just doodle while you're listening to the song. So, that's a great scaffolding activity. Another one is to read a story out loud. This is what another colleague of mine who's a sketchnoter I met on social media, her name is Beth Matasavage. She teaches kindergarten. And she gets her students to doodle whenever she reads a story out loud. And she just gets them to free associate and to draw either what's happening in the story or just to doodle. And she says their levels of engagement and focus just goes through the roof while they're doing this. Like, it's no longer like don't touch him and keep your arms to yourself. It's like they're so engaged in what they're doing because they're doodling. Yeah. So that would be another good activity.
Yeah. I'm picturing my own kids. So I was sharing with you before we started recording that we were just tonight reading Harry Potter together because that's what we do during our family night. And I could just imagine how much my kids would enjoy doodling while we do that. And
except you'd miss the cuddles.
Yeah, I would miss the cuddles. I'm not going to allow it because I'd miss the cuddles. But what a great thing to do during the school day. I remember when I used to be a fourth grade teacher, and I read to my class every day after recess to kind of, get them back into a relaxed state. But what if I had them doodling during that? What a wonderful way to start to develop that comfort with doing that.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's such an important age there. And I like that you're really making sure you point out there that you don't want to dive in too deep right away with the kids and overwhelm them. So it's almost like we don't say, hey, we're going to start sketchnoting. Don't worry, we're going to start slow. We just say, hey, I want you to doodle while I read. And then maybe the next day you say, hey, I want you to doodle about this topic that we're learning about in class, and then keep slowly scaffolding in until you're actually getting to the point of developing that sketchnoting culture.
Yeah. Now, I want to mention also that sketchnoting can be done in every single subject area, and it's just really up to the teacher to give it a try. And, I think the teacher has to say, look, we're going to learn how to do this together. Let's work on our visual vocabulary. Let's work on some icons and some containers and some frames and some fonts, and go through different exercises from my book or anything that you can find online. And there's a teacher, his name is Adam Juarez. I'll also put this in the notes after, but his Twitter handle is at TechCoach Juarez, Juarez. And he is I believe he has a job similar to yours, but he encourages the students at his school from middle school all the way to high school in every subject area to sketchnote. And he has compiled the most amazing collection of sketchnotes. He has a sketchnote gallery. It's a Google site with like grade 7, social studies, history, math, like all this areas that they're sketchnoting in with all the examples, all the student examples. So I'm going to give you a link to that as well.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Your notes, yeah.
Yeah, what a great thing to have, that kind of, it's almost like a portfolio of proof that this is good for kids and that this works, to pair with the data that you talked about that's in your book, to be able to share, look at what these kids have created, and we talk about digital portfolios regularly on the show. And I've worked at a school before where the students had to make digital portfolios as part of a yearly procedure. And they they were so boring, and parents would come in for these student-led conferences, and it should be such an exciting experience to get to have a talk together about what the student is doing and how they're growing. But we're looking at worksheets and essays and things like that. And not that those things don't have some places in the classes and the learning experience, but what if we were looking at sketch notes so we could really see their growth as an artist and as a learner, and see their thinking happening, you know, see their reasoning.
That's what it is. It's all about students displaying their learning.
Right. Yeah. How wonderful. Well, this is great stuff. You're relieving me inspired tonight, Sylvia. I'm going to go. Oh, good. I'm going to go like run through a brick wall and go buy your book. And on my way through the brick wall, I'm going to go into the Apple store and get my own iPad Pro and a pencil. And I'm just going to start sketchnoting everything.
Okay. Well, give me your address. I'd be happy to mail you a complimentary copy, Jake.
Thank you. I'm gonna make sure the link is in there so that everybody else could do that. I'm so excited to share this with everybody, Sylvia. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure.
How awesome was Sylvia? That was such a fun chat. She was so kind and gracious to talk to me during this episode, and she just shared so much awesome stuff about why sketchnote, how to sketchnote, how to start sketchnoting, what apps to use. So much knowledge to share. It was an absolute pleasure having her in. I hope you go check out her book and follow her and check out her website and all that good stuff. But now, time to hear about what the Duct Tapers have to say. First up, we've got 2 Apple Podcast reviews to share today. First one comes from TW in Baton Rouge. It was titled Absolute Favorite. It says, this podcast has soared to the top of my weekly most anticipated list. Everything Jake discusses is usable content and relatable across the grades and subjects. I get sad when the end of episode arrives. Thank you for providing me with so much excellent content in a fun way. TW, whoever you are, that was so stinking nice. I really appreciate it. Some of these make me a little choked up a little bit, guys. It's just so sweet of you guys. Next up comes from our friend Laura Cahill, Engage Educate. And it's titled Awesome PD for Teachers. If you are looking for PD with like-minded educators who love to talk about teaching and learning, look no further. Each week, Jake and his guest tackle real questions from real teachers who are looking for the best way to meet their students' needs. I honestly have to stop each episode several times to make a note of the amazing resources I learn about. If you are looking for a practical resource for EdTech and pedagogy you could put into practice right away, join the #EDU Duct Tape community. Thank you so much, Laura. I really, really appreciate these reviews. Guys, if nothing else, if you haven't left one, go ahead and leave one just because they make me so stinking happy. And you'll be able to go like, oh, I made Jake happy today, because I just love seeing these reviews. I really, really, really appreciate it. And it does help other educators discover the show, but mostly it just makes me happy to see them. Seriously. Laura mentioned there the #EDU Duct Tape community. So let's see what we've got to share from the #EDU Duct Tape community on Twitter. So I've got 8 tweets to share with you today. First up, our 4 favorite #EDU Duct Tape tweets of this week. By the way, we broke 1,000 #EDU Duct Tape tweets this week. Super cool to experience that. I delete out of the list all the ones that are from me and all the ones that are retweets. So literally 1,000 plus tweets that have like been the original tweet using the #EDU Duct Tape, which just blows my mind. It's so cool and so exciting. But here are my 4 favorites from the week. At Mrs. Tannen B, who we mentioned earlier in the show, said, I updated my blog yesterday. This week's post was inspired by #EDU Duct Tape Soapbox from episode 18. Sometimes failing at something ambitious can be better than succeeding at something easy. And I've linked that, as with the rest of the tweets, into the show notes so you can see it. Debbie did a wonderful blog post reflecting on that soapbox moment and how it affected her and how it relates to things that she's doing. I love seeing stuff like this, and I'm more than happy to share it out so everybody else could see it. So if you do things out there on the Twitter sphere or on the webosphere that relates back to this show, please do share it. I love seeing it. Next up, at 33, Hi Pull. How'd I do, Vicky? Hi Pull? Hi Pull. I had to look back at the tweet and make sure I did it right. Not hoi pull or what I've been saying before. Sorry. At 33, Hi Pull said, does anyone else find themselves chanting, and I'm adding in the chant sound here, soapbox time, soapbox time over and over. I mean, I try to at least keep one hand on the steering wheel, though. Hashtag edu duct tape. Thank you for that, Vicky. Funny one there. Next up, at Mo_physics said, at JakeMillerTech, hashtag edu duct tape is edutainment at its best. Always impressed with your ability to not only diverge from the main road for great tangents, but then somehow bring it right back. Hashtag giraffe neck. But my favorite part about this is the GIF. I don't even know, Mo, if this GIF can possibly be real. It's this semi truck that is weaving in and out of traffic in a way that doesn't seem physically possible. I don't know. At Mark's Lara, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, said, at JakeMillerTech, I know you are super busy with your amazing hashtag GIF a day and your incredible hashtag edu duct tape podcast, but I really think you need to take some time to watch The Princess Bride again. Laura is not the only one by any stretch that told me I need to go watch The Princess Bride, so I think this coming weekend I'm going to have to get on that. My wife is a fan of Monty Python and other related styles of humor, so I think maybe I could convince her to watch with me. Next up, my other favorite hashtag edu duct tape tweets to talk about are the ones that tell me where the duct tapers are listening, and I've got 4 to share today. At J.A. Spang said, hey, at JakeMillerTech, I drive through beautiful and historic Carlisle, Massachusetts as I listen to the hashtag edu duct tape podcast, and she showed a set of very beautiful pictures of some houses that she passed by. At Brian Carr, with his hashtag fresh air at 5, Brian has been tweeting every morning when he goes on his 5 a.m. walk about what he's listening to on his hike, and he posts these beautiful pictures of the terrain in Canada where he's going for these walks, and I was fortunate enough to have my show be the soundtrack to these walks a couple times this past week. So thank you for those, Brian. Next up, at Morgan Colas said, jumping on the at JakeMillerTech hashtag edu duct tape podcast this morning, trying to block out the noise in the hair salon. I'm a fan. Morgan, I think you're the first listener in a hair salon, although somebody might send me a message and correct me. Maybe you're not. At Stacy Ford 77 sent a picture of the plains of western Oklahoma where she's listening to the show. It looks absolutely beautiful. It's amazing that there's that large of a stretch of land where there's nothing but green and nature. It's pretty awesome to see. Next up, our new hashtag edu duct tape tweeps of the week. Just 3 of them this week. Come on, guys, get out there and start tweeting and tell your friends to tweet about the show and listen and share. We're approaching 300 different tweeters with hashtag edu duct tape tweets. Again, not counting people who retweet, but our 3 newbies for this week are at Amy J. Huckabee, at bmiller_FSTS, and the aforementioned at Brian Carr. Next up, the hashtag edu duct tape Flipgrid. It's running a little dry right now. We're not getting so many responses, so please do go share on the Flipgrid. It's at eduducttape.com/Flipgrid or flipgrid.com/eduducttape, and you could post a question, post some feedback, or just connect with other listeners there, and you might get to hear your voice on the show. So today we're going to hear from Alexis Snyder, who is sharing from Hanoi, Vietnam. That is just so cool that somebody is listening to the show and sharing from Vietnam. So amazing. So thank you for that, Alexis. My favorite part of her submission, you won't be able to tell in the podcast, is what's in the video. So you should go to the Flipgrid and see it. She is, selfie camming on her phone as she stands beside her motorcycle or bike, I'm not sure what it is, Alexis, with her helmet on, and this beautiful scene of Vietnam. The background looks so, very picturesque. So you should hop on the Flipgrid and check it out. But let's hear what Alexis has to say.
Hi, Jake, and all the edu duct tapers out there. This is Alexis Snyder coming to you from Hanoi, Vietnam. And I usually listen to the podcast on my motorbike ride to work every morning. And so I was really interested in the episode a few weeks ago about how do you keep track of the things that you're learning on the podcast when you can't jot them down right away. And I really like the ideas about using the Google Assistant to help you out. But I tried it, and the problem is you have to have your phone unlocked to be able to have Google Keep or set a voice reminder or something like that, which I can't really do on my bike. So my best solution for what I do right now is I just tuck back in one little corner of my brain the important things that I'm hearing or the cool tool I might want to try. And as soon as I get to school, I open up my Google Keep and I just jot it down there. But I think maybe to be safe and to be realistic, probably just trying our best to remember the important things and then jot them down as soon as we can really helps me. Okay, thanks so much, and I love the podcast.
And then Alexis had to reply really quickly to herself because she realized she had left out an important part of her video, and that's how to connect with her on Twitter.
Hi again. I just realized that in my video, I forgot to post the name of my school, my position, and my Twitter handle. So I work at Concordia International School, Hanoi, which is in Hanoi, Vietnam, and I am a 4th grade homeroom teacher and a total EdTech geek. My Twitter handle is at Alexis Snyder, SNIDER 15. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that, Alexis. So rad hearing the show being listened to in other countries. This is not our first Flipgrid response that we've heard from a different country, and it just makes me feel so happy to know those things are happening and that people are listening not only in my own backyard of Kent, Ohio, but across the world and taking things from the show. It's just super exciting, and I really appreciate it. And I appreciate those of you that are reaching out. If you haven't done so yet, please review the show on Apple Podcasts. Please make sure you have subscribed so you don't miss any episodes. Please submit a response at flipgrid.com/edu duct tape. Please tweet about the show at #edu duct tape or share on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or MySpace about the show. Please tell your friends and colleagues because we welcome in as many duct tapers as we can get. If you'd like some stickers so that you can rep the duct tape on your trips to conferences and things like that on your top of your laptop, head over to jakemiller.net/send-me-stickers so I could send you some stickers. If you have not already signed up for my newsletter, please do so at jakemiller.net/newsletter so you know when new podcast episodes come out, when new GIF a Day opportunities come up, when new GIFs are released, when new speaking events are coming up for me and things like that. And speaking of speaking, head over to jakemiller.net/speaking if you're looking for a consultant or trainer or a keynote speaker or something like that for an upcoming event. And as always, have a wonderful week. Keep doing the awesome things that you do for students, and I will see you all next week.
Thank you for listening to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. Please consider rating and reviewing the show on your favorite podcast app. #EduDuctTape.